A young man once built a small workshop in his garage. He spent years quietly learning, failing, and refining. While others posted their dreams on social media, he posted nothing. One day, the doors opened, and the world saw a thriving business that seemed to appear overnight. In another town, a woman wrote every morning before dawn. She told no one. Years later, her first book became a bestseller. They both understood something rare. In this noisy world, power grows in silence. There's an old truth that has quietly guided the wisest and most successful people through history: never tell people what you do. Let your work speak for you. In every age, there have been those who spoke loudly about their plans and those who moved silently toward them. Time has always sided with the latter, because the man who tells the world what he's going to do loses the energy that would have built it. When we talk too soon, we borrow the satisfaction of having already achieved something, and in doing so, we lose the drive to make it real. There is a mysterious strength in silence. When you keep your goals private, you protect them from the winds of opinion and the storms of doubt. You shield them from the careless words of others who may not understand your vision. Great things are delicate in their beginning. Like seeds, they must be planted in quiet soil before they grow into trees that touch the sky. The moment you expose them too early, you risk trampling them under the noise of the world. Every great invention, every masterpiece, every quiet success story began the same way, alone, unseen, and undisturbed. Thomas Edison didn't boast about his 1,000 failed experiments. He worked until the bulb lit. Beethoven didn't announce his symphonies. He composed in solitude until they echoed through time. In this modern world of instant sharing, it's easy to believe that visibility equals progress. But visibility without substance is only illusion. What truly matters is the work, the patient, consistent, daily labor done away from the eyes of the crowd. True strength is not built in the glare of attention, but in the solitude of quiet effort. The world often mistakes noise for progress, as if the loudest voices were the most capable. Yet, history reveals a different truth. Those who achieve the most are often those who speak the least about it. Strength, like the roots of a mighty oak, grows underground, unseen and undisturbed. It is formed in silence, away from the applause and opinions of others. When a man works in private, his focus sharpens, his conviction deepens, and his ability matures. He no longer seeks validation, he seeks mastery. The applause that so many chase begins to lose its meaning once one discovers the quiet satisfaction of building something real within himself. In the privacy of effort, something extraordinary happens. A person learns to listen to the subtle voice of intuition, to the rhythm of his own discipline, to the whisper of his higher purpose. He begins to trust himself. The distractions of the outside world fade and the work becomes pure. This is where strength lives, not in declarations, but in consistency, not in boasting, but in building. Every repetition, every quiet act of commitment, forges a power that no one can see until it's too late to stop it. The greatest mountains rise silently. They do not announce their growth, yet they stand as monuments to patience and endurance. Most people rush to show the world what they're doing, hoping to be admired before they've accomplished anything of substance. But those who are truly strong understand the sacredness of privacy. They keep their plans close and their progress invisible, knowing that strength requires protection in its early stages. When you tell others your intentions, you scatter your energy. But when you hold them in silence, you gather it. Energy contained becomes force. Force becomes direction. And direction pursued long enough becomes destiny. True strength is not for display. It is for endurance. It doesn't crumble when unrecognized, nor does it depend on praise to sustain itself. The person who trains his mind in solitude, who studies while others sleep, who works while others talk, he builds something that cannot be faked or borrowed. The weightlifter grows strong not during the lift, but in the invisible recovery that follows. The thinker becomes wise not during conversation, but in the hours of reflection that no one sees. So it is with all forms of greatness. It is the invisible labor that sustains the visible results. In a world obsessed with validation, the strongest individuals are those who require none. They understand that true confidence comes from competence, and competence is born in silence. They build their foundation deep before showing the structure to the world, and when at last their work emerges, it carries with it the authority of authenticity, the calm assurance of effort well invested, and the unmistakable power of strength developed in private. Talking too soon drains the energy of creation. Every time we speak of a goal not yet achieved, we borrow from the very force that could have made it possible. The mind is a peculiar instrument. It does not easily distinguish between words and deeds. When you tell others what you plan to do, your subconscious feels as though the work has already begun, sometimes even completed, and the drive to act diminishes. The reward of approval comes too early, and the hunger that should fuel your progress begins to fade. Many dreams have withered not from lack of talent, but from premature conversation. When we speak too soon, we spend our energy in talk instead of in work, in describing instead of doing, in imagining instead of building. There is an unseen law that governs achievement. Momentum belongs to the silent worker. The more we talk about what we intend to accomplish, the less likely we are to follow through. Our words create a false sense of movement, an illusion of advancement. You'll notice how the dreamers who chatter endlessly about their plans rarely deliver, while the ones who quietly persist tend to astonish everyone with results. This isn't coincidence, it's cause and effect. Energy, once spoken, disperses. Energy, when guarded, multiplies. Silence is not merely the absence of words, it is the conservation of power. Every artist, every inventor, every creator must learn this discipline. The process of creation demands concentrated attention, and attention divided by conversation weakens its potency. Imagine a sculptor who pauses his chiseling every few minutes to explain his vision. Soon his rhythm breaks, his precision falters, and his masterpiece remains unfinished. The mind works best when it is free from the pressure of performing for others. Silence allows thought to deepen, and deep thought produces lasting work. The temptation to talk is always strong. We seek encouragement, reassurance, applause. But encouragement gained through speech is fleeting, while confidence earned through action endures. It is far better to feel the quiet strength that comes from daily progress than to seek the shallow comfort of verbal approval. Those who keep their goals unspoken maintain a sacred tension within themselves, a tension that propels them forward. That tension is energy, and energy is the lifeblood of creation. Talking too soon is like opening an oven before the bread is baked. The heat escapes and the rise is lost. The idea, once shared prematurely, becomes vulnerable to doubt, opinion, and distraction. It loses its mystery, its momentum, its power to compel you forward. The wise preserve that power. They nurture their ideas in the dark, feed them with effort, and reveal them only when they are ready to stand on their own. Speech can inspire others, but silence strengthens the self. And it is only through that strength that the great work of your life can truly come to light. Success has always preferred those who work in silence and let results speak. The world listens far more attentively to what a man produces than to what he promises. Words may attract attention, but deeds command respect. In every generation, there have been those who sought admiration through talk, and those who sought mastery through toil. The former chase recognition, the latter create it. The man who quietly tends to his craft, who refines his ability without announcing his every effort, walks a path that leads inevitably to success. Because success is drawn to substance, not sound. When we speak of our goals, we invite the opinions of others, approval that flatters, doubt that discourages, or advice that distracts. But when we work in silence, we owe nothing to anyone but the task itself. Our energy remains pure, our direction unaltered. The craftsman who hammers in solitude builds not only the object before him, but also the character within him. The athlete who trains before dawn, unseen and unpraised, earns a strength that no applause can counterfeit. The writer who fills page after page in the quiet of morning gains not followers but fluency, not fame but force. It is this unseen labor that shapes greatness. There's an elegance to quiet effort. It carries with it a kind of dignity that loud ambition can never replicate. The moment a man begins to talk of his plans, he begins to divide his power. But the man who simply acts, who works while others wonder, concentrates all his will in a single direction. His results arrive as revelation. People call him lucky, as though fortune chose him out of the crowd, not realizing that his silence was his strategy. We live in a world that rewards noise, where everyone is eager to be noticed, yet true success rarely walks on stage uninvited. It emerges, steady and certain, from those who stayed backstage long after others left. The truth is that progress loves privacy. Growth requires incubation, like a seed buried beneath the soil. It needs darkness, time, and patience before it can face the light. To speak of it too early is to dig it up before it's rooted. The man who lets his results speak finds that his silence becomes his loudest statement. His achievements arrive with an authority that needs no defense. There's no boasting in excellence, only quiet proof. The world may overlook him while he works, but when his work is complete, it cannot look away. Every great builder, every innovator, every leader who changed history shared this habit. They didn't tell the world what they would do, they showed the world what they had done. And in that revelation lay their triumph. Because success, like a well-crafted melody, is best heard when the instruments of words are silent and the symphony of results begins to play. Secrecy builds discipline and focus. There is a special kind of power that comes from keeping one's intentions hidden, not out of fear, but out of purpose. When you withhold your plans from the world, you create an internal agreement between yourself and your vision, a bond that demands loyalty and consistency. You begin to work not for recognition, but for realization. And in that quiet contract, discipline is born. Every great accomplishment in human history began as a private decision, protected by silence and strengthened by focus. The moment you choose to guard your purpose, you declare that your energy will no longer be spent on talk, but on transformation. Discipline thrives in secrecy because secrecy eliminates distraction. When you share your goals, you invite commentary, and commentary divides the mind. Opinions, even well-meaning ones, scatter concentration like wind dispersing smoke. But when you stay silent, your effort becomes a single beam of light, narrow, precise, and powerful. The quiet worker has no one to impress, no crowd to please, no schedule to perform for. His focus sharpens because his only competition is with the man he was yesterday. That inner rivalry is the purest kind of motivation, for it demands honesty and endurance rather than applause. The human mind has a finite supply of willpower. Every moment spent explaining yourself drains it a little. The individual who guards his silence saves that strength for the long hours of unseen work. In secrecy, he cultivates patience. In patience, he discovers control. Discipline is not forged in the noise of attention, but in the steady rhythm of repetition. The pianist practicing scales in an empty room, the boxer throwing punches in the dim light of morning, the student studying long after the world sleeps. These are the scenes where greatness is made. The absence of an audience removes the temptation to quit, for no one is watching to judge. The only voice that remains is the inner one, quietly urging, continue. Focus, too, is born in this same solitude. A mind that is private is a mind that is undisturbed. It can hold one thought, one purpose with unbroken intensity. The world today offers 1,000 distractions and 1,000,000 ways to share them. Yet, the man who keeps his purpose secret keeps his power intact. He directs his thought like a sculptor's hand, slow, deliberate, and sure. The marble of his mind becomes a masterpiece not by talking about art, but by shaping it in silence. In every pursuit, there is a moment when the world must be shut out. Secrecy becomes the guardian of progress, and discipline its loyal companion. Together they forge a character that cannot be swayed by noise or weakened by opinion. When a person learns to work quietly, focused only on the task before him, he develops the strength that all others mistake for talent and the clarity that all others call genius. People's opinions can distort your vision if you share too early. The human mind is like soft clay in the beginning stages of a dream, malleable, sensitive, and easily reshaped by the hands of others. When an idea is new, it exists only as a spark, fragile and uncertain. It needs protection, not exposure. Yet too often we share our ideas before they are ready to face the world, and the careless words of others snuff them out. Every great dream requires solitude in its early growth. The moment you open it to opinion, you risk losing the purity of your own vision. What begins as confidence can quickly turn into confusion once filtered through the doubts and fears of those who do not see as you see. Most people do not intend to harm your dream, but they will nonetheless reshape it with their own limitations. They project their failures onto your ambitions, their fears onto your possibilities. Tell a small thinker about a great vision, and he will instinctively tell you why it cannot be done. Share your plan with someone who has never built anything, and he will find a dozen reasons why you shouldn't even try. This is not malice, it is ignorance. People can only see from the height of their own experience, and few have climbed far enough to see what you see. So when you invite opinion, you invite interference. There is a quiet wisdom in protecting your ideas from outside noise. Your vision was given to you, not to them. It came through your thoughts, your instincts, your imagination. The more you expose it to the world, the less of it remains truly yours. Opinions dilute purpose, they cloud decision, they shift focus. What was once a clear path becomes a maze of other people's expectations. Soon, the dream that was alive with personal meaning becomes something performed for approval rather than fulfillment. That is how most great plans die, not from failure but from dilution. The mind must be guarded like a sacred space. Every thought allowed in shapes the architecture of your reality. When you let the wrong voices echo in that space, you begin to doubt your own inner compass. The wisest among us have always worked in silence, not because they feared judgment, but because they understood its cost. They knew that the vision must grow roots before it can face the wind. To reveal too early is to invite destruction. To conceal is to give strength. The opinions of others can never see what your heart can. The crowd may call your idea foolish until it succeeds, and then inevitable once it does. That is the rhythm of the world. But the man who guards his dream, who listens to his own understanding before the world's, carries within him a clarity that no criticism can shake. He becomes the steward of his own destiny, shaping it not by the noise of others, but by the quiet certainty of belief. The quiet mind hears ideas the noisy one misses. In a world filled with endless chatter, constant motion, and unbroken distraction, the ability to still the mind has become a rare art. Yet it is in that stillness that the most powerful thoughts are born. Ideas are like whispers from a higher place, and they do not compete with noise, they wait for silence. The individual who learns to quiet his thoughts, to calm the storm of constant reaction, begins to tune into a frequency that few ever discover. In that gentle quiet, inspiration appears, guidance unfolds, and solutions reveal themselves with astonishing clarity. The great thinkers, the inventors, the artists who changed the course of history all shared one secret. They knew how to listen to the silence. Noise is the enemy of insight. The mind, when filled with the opinions of others, the endless hum of entertainment, or the restless need for stimulation, cannot focus deeply enough to perceive truth. Every moment of quiet is an invitation for understanding to enter. But most people fear silence because it reveals the truth of their own thoughts. They drown it out with distraction, mistaking noise for life. Yet the quiet mind is not empty. It is alive, alert, and listening. It hears possibilities that the restless mind overlooks. It perceives patterns where others see chaos. It catches ideas in their purest form, unshaped by outside influence. When you practice quieting the mind, you begin to separate yourself from the rush of the world. You no longer chase every impulse or opinion. Instead, you move with purpose, guided by insight rather than noise. The quiet mind does not react, it responds. It does not rush, it decides. It does not seek validation, it seeks truth. In that calm space of thought, new ideas have room to grow, and creativity flows naturally. Every great discovery, every timeless invention, began as a single moment of stillness in a mind that had learned to listen. We live in an age that rewards speed and noise. Everyone speaks, few listen. Everyone moves, few think. But wisdom, real wisdom, has always belonged to those who can pause long enough to understand. The quiet mind sees connections others miss because it is not distracted by the surface of things. It looks deeper. It asks questions and waits for the answers to rise from within. That is the nature of insight. It cannot be forced, only received. The power of silence is not weakness but strength refined. It allows us to hear the subtle signals that guide progress and intuition. A man who can quiet his mind possesses an invisible advantage, for while the world is busy shouting, he is listening to the world, to his conscience, and to the voice of opportunity. The quiet mind becomes the bridge between thought and creation, between confusion and clarity, between who we are and who we can yet become. Humility is a companion of mastery. The moment a person believes he has arrived, he begins to drift backward. True mastery is never loud, never boastful, and never final. It is a lifelong devotion to learning, an acknowledgement that no matter how far one has come, there is always further to go. The greatest minds in history carried within them a quiet humility that came not from weakness, but from understanding. They knew that the universe is vast, that knowledge is infinite, and that wisdom grows only in those who admit how little they know. The man who is humble remains open to new ideas, new lessons, and new possibilities. He never stops refining his craft because he never claims to have perfected it. Pride closes the door of progress, but humility keeps it open. Pride insists, "I know enough." Humility whispers, "There is more to learn." The humble individual listens where others speak. He observes where others argue. He studies where others boast. In that quiet attention, he gathers truths that the arrogant overlook. Mastery is not born from brilliance alone, but from patience, openness, and the willingness to remain a student even when others call you a master. Every expert who stands tall in his field has spent countless unseen hours learning, failing, and improving. The humble heart endures this process without complaint, while the proud one grows restless, needing recognition before the lesson is complete. There is a grace in humility, a calm strength that does not need to be proven. The man who knows himself has no need to announce it. He does not compete for attention, because he understands that excellence will draw it naturally. Humility removes the ego from the work and allows the work to shine on its own. It transforms effort into art and ambition into contribution. The humble worker builds quietly, content that the result will one day speak with far greater eloquence than his words ever could. To walk with humility is to live in harmony with truth. It means recognizing that every success rests on the foundation of countless unseen influences. the teachers, experiences, and even failures that shaped us. It means understanding that achievement is never solitary. The humble person gives credit where it is due, and by doing so he gains even greater respect. Humility invites growth, and growth attracts success. They move together step by step as companions on the same road. Mastery, when stripped of humility, becomes fragile. It depends on praise, fears correction, and resists change. But mastery rooted in humility becomes eternal because it is always evolving. The humble man does not need to tell the world who he is. He simply continues to learn, to improve, and to serve through his work. And in doing so, he reaches heights that pride could never sustain. For humility is not the denial of greatness. It is the foundation upon which all true greatness stands. Every great achievement begins as a secret thought. Before it takes form, before it meets the eyes of others, it lives quietly in the depths of the mind. It starts as a single spark of imagination, fragile yet powerful enough to ignite a life's purpose. The greatest inventions, the most profound works of art, and the noblest acts of courage all began as private visions carried in silence. The seed of every towering oak once rested unseen beneath the soil. In the same way, the seed of every great success begins in the hidden garden of thought. What we hold in our minds with conviction and nurture with action eventually finds its way into the world. When a person first conceives an idea, it is sacred. It exists only between the thinker and the universe. To speak of it too soon is to risk its strength, for words expose it to doubt, to misunderstanding, and to ridicule. A secret thought is pure energy, focused, alive, unbroken by opinion. The man who learns to protect it holds within him the power to transform imagination into reality. He works quietly, letting the thought take shape, testing it in his mind until it becomes clear, strong, and undeniable. Only then does he act, and when he does, his steps are sure and steady because he has already walked the path 1,000 times in thought. The world rarely understands the importance of unseen beginnings. People admire the visible triumphs but seldom realize the depth of the invisible preparation. The composer hears the symphony long before a single note is written. The architect sees the building in his mind before a single brick is laid. The leader envisions a new way before a single follower appears. These secret thoughts are the blueprints of destiny. They are the silent beginnings of everything that lasts. The power of a private vision lies in its purity. It is not shaped by approval nor weakened by criticism. It is strengthened only by belief. When you keep your dream to yourself, you give it room to breathe, to expand, to grow roots in the fertile soil of faith. It becomes part of you, not something you perform for the world, but something you live. That is why the wisest among us protect their early ideas with reverent silence. They understand that great thoughts, like new life, need time to develop in peace before facing the light. Every great achievement begins not with action, but with thought. A thought that is cherished, protected, and nourished becomes a force that shapes reality. The invisible always precedes the visible. What we secretly think about, we eventually bring about. The man who learns to master his inner vision becomes the author of his own destiny, for he understands that before anything can exist in the world, it must first exist within the quiet power of the mind. The more you say, the less you do, the more you do, the less you need to say. There is a balance in life between words and action, and the wise understand that talking often subtracts from doing. Each word spoken about a goal takes a little energy from the act of achieving it. The man who constantly talks about what he intends to do begins to feel as if he has already done it, and the fire that should drive him to act slowly fades. But the man who does without announcing, who moves quietly in the direction of his purpose, finds that his strength multiplies, his energy is preserved, his focus remains intact. And when the work is complete, it speaks for him far more powerfully than words ever could. In every field of endeavor, the difference between dreamers and doers lies in silence. The dreamer speaks, the doer works. The dreamer looks for attention, the doer looks for results. One spends his time telling the world what he plans to build, while the other spends his days laying the foundation. When their paths cross years later, one still talks about what might have been, and the other stands quietly beside his creation. The world may not notice the silent man in the beginning, but in the end it cannot ignore what he has done. Talking satisfies the ego, doing satisfies the soul. To speak of a plan is easy, for words cost nothing. Action, however, demands sacrifice, time, effort, patience, and discipline. That is why the crowd talks while only a few achieve. It is far simpler to describe a goal than to work toward it, but each day spent speaking without action deepens the habit of delay. The tongue becomes busy while the hands grow idle. Progress belongs to those who reverse that pattern, who talk less and move more. They understand that quiet persistence builds momentum, and momentum builds success. There is a quiet dignity in action. The man who does his work faithfully, without seeking recognition, gains a strength that no applause can give. He does not need to convince others of his worth. His results will prove it. His silence is not emptiness but control. It is the confidence of someone who knows where he is going and does not need permission to continue. Such people are rare, and they are the ones the world eventually admires most. The more a person talks, the more he reveals his uncertainty. The more he works, the more he builds his certainty. The path to mastery is found not in discussion but in dedication. When action becomes the language of your ambition, your achievements begin to speak for themselves. And when they do, you will find that no explanation, no boast, no speech will ever equal the quiet authority of a life that has turned intention into accomplishment. Never tell people what you do. Show them when it's done. There is a quiet power in letting your results speak louder than your words ever could. The world is filled with those who announce their intentions with great fanfare, yet accomplish very little. They seek recognition before achievement, praise before proof, and admiration before mastery. Meanwhile, the person who works silently, who channels all his energy into action rather than explanation, builds something real, lasting, and undeniable. By the time the work is visible, it carries a weight that words could never have created. Success revealed in action is convincing, inspiring, and final, because it cannot be disputed. When you announce your plans prematurely, you risk more than distraction. You risk the dilution of your own determination. Talking about a goal can give a fleeting sense of progress, as if the dream is already partially realized, and in that illusion the drive to act is weakened. The act of doing, however, strengthens resolve. Each step taken in silence builds confidence, competence, and momentum. The unseen labor of effort prepares the way for a result that astonishes others precisely because it was hidden until it was fully formed. Those who reveal too soon often invite criticism, doubt, and interference, while those who wait create an inevitability that cannot be challenged. Showing results rather than announcing them requires patience, persistence, and faith in the process. It demands that you remain devoted to your work when no one is watching, when applause is absent, and when the temptation to explain is strongest. It is in those quiet hours of dedication that character is forged. The builder, the inventor, the artist, and the entrepreneur all know this truth. A project is not complete when you tell the world it exists. It is complete when the work itself commands attention. The subtlety of accomplishment carries authority. It signals mastery without needing proclamation. When the work finally emerges, it speaks for itself. People do not measure it by promises made. They measure it by results achieved. The quiet worker gains not only success but credibility, influence, and respect, because his actions are consistent with his purpose. There is no gap between word and deed. No one can claim he has failed, for the proof lies in the tangible outcome. And in that revelation, the power of silence is fully realized. To withhold your efforts until they are fully formed is to protect their integrity. It is to honor your own commitment and shield your vision from interference. It allows ideas to grow undisturbed, energy to remain concentrated, and results to arrive fully matured. Those who understand this principle gain an advantage over the many who speak prematurely, for they harness a law as old as human achievement: work quietly, act consistently, and let the finished product speak for itself, carrying with it a force and credibility that no words could ever match. Remember, greatness is cultivated in secrecy before it is revealed in triumph. Ideas flourish in quiet, energy multiplies in focus, and mastery deepens in humility. The world may never notice the early struggles, the unseen hours, or the private decisions, yet these are precisely what shape the power of your eventual success. The principle is timeless. Do not announce your work, do not seek early praise, and do not invite distraction. Guard your vision, honor your effort, and let your achievements carry the message when they are ready to be seen. In the end, the life of quiet, disciplined action speaks far louder than 1,000 speeches ever could. It is in the doing, not the talking, that we discover our strength. It is in the patient cultivation of thought, effort, and integrity that we create results that cannot be ignored. The man who understands this principle walks a path of certainty, authority, and undeniable accomplishment, proving to the world, without a word, the power of purpose realized.